Equally important to the structure of influence is the art of influence. There's a very specific art that's going to dictate how successful or unsuccessful you are as an influencer. There are hundreds and thousands of salespeople out there using the same scripts, the same strategies, and getting completely different results. The same thing is true for leaders or coaches. There are many people who have been trained in the same methodology, but the delivery of it is what actually dictates our level of success. It's really critical for us to focus on what we're telling ourselves internally and what we're feeling out and what people are feeling from us externally. And so when we look at influence, there are really 6 pieces to the art. And the first 3 pieces are what is happening inside. Our minds, our heart, our body, our connection with God and our soul. These things are really critical. And the first piece is our identity. What's really critical when we look at the art of influence is, what do we believe about ourselves? That comes through us, and that really is felt by the people that we're speaking with. And so what we want to consider is, what stories are we telling ourselves about ourselves? How confident are you in your identity? Do you see yourself as someone who's of great value, or do you see yourself as an annoyance or a hindrance, or somebody who's going to provide something that people would want to reject or be skeptical or hesitant of? Are you apologizing for who you are and what you're doing? Or are you showing up strong in your identity and certain of yourself? All of these things are really critical. Additionally, when we look at the identity that we're showing up in, are you someone who has the identity of being just a salesperson or a manager? Or do you see yourself truly as a leader? They're gonna feel the difference in how you see yourself, and they're likely gonna see themselves the exact same way that you see yourself. They're gonna see you the exact same way that you see yourself. These things are very much transferable. They're contagious. And it's important for you to consider that when you show up in an appointment. And if you need to do some work to shift your identity, congratulations, you're like most of the world. And there are people out there who can help you. The second piece, and by the way, we can dive much, much further into that, and we do at our immersions, but that's just to give you the tip of the iceberg. The second piece that's really relevant beyond identity is your state. And so it's not how do you see yourself all together, how do you see yourself in the grand scheme of life, but it's how do you see yourself in that very moment. And state is about the energetic emotionally that you're bringing to that very moment. Are you feeling happy before this sales conversation or sad? Are you feeling anxiety or fear going into your leadership conversation? Or are you feeling confidence and certainty? The things that are happening to us outside of our sale, outside of our leadership, outside of our business affect the emotional state that we come into the business with, come into that conversation with. And one of the things that may be a great benefit to you is to consider, how do I need to show up right now? What are the 3 emotions that I most need to feel? What is the state that's ideal? What is the state that I'm in when I'm on fire? And how can I bring that state to this conversation? And so if you know that when you're at your very best, you feel passion and energy, you feel excitement and joy, you feel confidence and certainty, then the question becomes, what is the pre-call ritual that is going to get you into that state? Do you need to pray? Do you need to have some visualization moments? Do you need to breathe? Do you need to hold a power pose to get into the right state? Do you need to affirm yourself or read an affirmation that you've written previously? Maybe you need to do some push-ups or some jumping jacks and get into movement before you have a conversation. Whatever that is for you, if you can get clear on, these are the emotions I need to feel to be in my highest state, and these are the strategies that can get me into those emotions, that's gonna make it easier for you to win. And the third piece in what's happening internally that's gonna affect the art of your conversation is your story. What stories are you telling yourself about your prospect, about your product or service, about your company? If you're telling yourself negative stories about your company or how you're getting an unfair deal, or maybe it's a negative story about your territory and how the right clients aren't in your territory, the right leads aren't being given to you or being created by you, then you're not gonna have as much success. If you prejudge your prospect and say this person can't buy, or they can't buy our top level product or service, then you're probably gonna be felt by them in that story. If you're telling yourself a story about yourself or your company or who you are, which again points back to identity, that's gonna really get in your way. And so be mindful of the stories you're telling yourself before you get into influence and before you start the conversation with a prospect or one of your mentees, one of your employees, someone that you want to lead. It's really critical for you to consider the stories you're telling yourself about them. Have you written them off, or do you believe in them fully? The shift in this story makes all the difference. Once we get through the internal findings of our influence art, we get through the stories, we get through the emotional state, we get through the identity piece. Once we can work through these things and get A+ in these 3 categories, then we can actually focus on what we're giving externally. We can focus on the next 3 steps in the art of influence. The first one being connectivity. How connected are we to our prospects, to the people we're leading? How much do they feel like we know them, like them, appreciate them, understand them? How much do they feel like they are like us and we are like them? These things are really critical. And again, there's a lot we can dive into here, but I'll leave it at that for now. Once we feel really connected to our prospects and they feel connected to us, the second step is communication. How are we communicating? Are you communicating in a way that makes you feel smart? Are you using language that is beyond what your client can receive, or are you using their language? Are you communicating in a way that is inviting to them, or is pushing? There's a push and a pull dynamic to communication, and you want to be thoughtful about which one you're engaging in. Are you communicating in a way that involves you telling a lot or you asking a lot? The most powerful influencers are asking great questions. They are asking more than they're telling. In an ideal conversation of influence, you should probably only be talking 30 or 40% of the time. Your prospect, client, employee, mentee, they should be talking 60 or 70% of the time. They should supply most of the answers, and you can be masterful with your questions when you master communication. And then the third piece is leadership, and we've referenced this throughout these first five stages of the art of influence, and the 6th is bringing that together throughout. Are you a salesperson? Are you a manager? Or are you a leader? Operating in leadership throughout the conversation means that you need nothing from them. You're totally abundant. You know as a leader that your cup is overflowing. God has blessed you again and again and again, and you don't need anything from this salesperson. You don't need anything from this employee. You and your business are going to survive no matter what. That's the abundant frame to take as a leader. Rather than being overly aggressive or desperate for the sale or desperate to have them follow you, the posture you want to take is one of, I have something to offer here, and if it's a we win, we'll do business together. If it's not, we can let the deal go. There's no need in an abundant leader. And there's an opportunity for you to show up, even if you're a salesperson, as a leader, truly leading your clients. Can you show up and truly lead your employees? Show up and truly lead your sales team. And there's a tremendous amount of content. We could spend hours talking about leadership in these conversations, and it is the most critical element to the success or failure that you have as an influencer. Showing up as a leader is your job. We can help you do that more authentically, more thoughtfully, and more powerfully than you ever have before. Let's talk more.